Hello everyone, welcome to AudioBook's Reader. So this is a video of audiobook of the book As a Man Thinketh. Forward, this little volume is not intended as an exhaustive treatise as the much written upon subject of the power of thought. It is suggestive rather than explanatory, its object being to stimulate men and women to the discovery and perception of the truth that themselves are makers of themselves. By virtue of the thoughts which they choose and encourage, that mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance, and that, as they may have hitherto woven ignorance and pain, that may now weave in enlightenment and happiness. Thought and character. The aphorism, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, not only embraces the whole of a man's being, but is so comprehensive as to reach out to every condition and circumstance of his life. A man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. As a plant springs from and could not be without the seed, so every act of a man springs from the hidden seeds of thought, and could not have appeared without them. This applies equally to those acts called spontaneous and unpremeditated as to those which are deliberately executed. Act is the blossom of thought, and joy and suffering are its roots. Thus does a man garner in the sweet and bitter fruitage of his own husbandry. Thought in the mind hath made us. What we are by thought was wrought and built. If a man's mind hath evil thought, pain comes on him, as comes the wheel the ox behind. If one endure in purity of thought, joy follows him, as his own shadow sure. Man is a growth by law, and not a certain by artifice, and cause and effect is as absolute and undeviating in the hidden realm of thought as in the world of visible and material things. A noble and godlike character is not a thing of favor or chance, but is a natural result of continued effort in right thinking. The effect of long cherished association with godlike thoughts, an ignoble and bestial character by the same process is the result of the continued harboring of groveling thoughts. Man is made or un by himself. In the armory of thought, he forges the weapon by which he destroys himself. He also fashions the tools with which he builds for himself heavenly mansion of joy and strength and peace. By the right choice and true application of thought, man ascends to the divine perfection. By the abuse and wrong application of thought, he descends below the level of the beast. Between these two extremes are all the grades of character, and man is their maker and master. Of all the beautiful truths pertaining to the soul which have been restored and brought to light in this age, none is more gladdening or fruitful of divine promise and confidence than this, that a man is a master of thought, the moulder of character, and the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny. As a being of power, intelligence, and love, and the lord of his own thought, man holds the key to every situation, and contains within himself the transforming and regenerative agency by which he may make himself what he wills. Man is always the master, even in his weaker and most abandoned state. But in his weakness and degradation, he is the foolish master, who misgoverns his household. When he begins to reflect upon his condition, and to search diligently for the law upon which his being is established, he then becomes the wise master, directing his energies with intelligence and fashioning his thoughts of fruitful issues. Such is the conscious master, and man can only thus become by discovering within himself the laws of thought, which discovery is totally a matter of application, self-analysis, and experience. Only by much searching and mining are gold and diamonds obtained, and men can find every truth connected with his being. if he will dig deep into the mine of his soul, and that he is the maker of his character, the molder of his life, and the builder of his destiny, he may unerringly prove, if he will watch, control, and alter his thoughts, tracing their effect upon himself, upon others, and upon his life and circumstances, linking cause and effect by patient practice and investigation, and utilizing his every experience, even to the most trivial, everyday occurrence, as a means of obtaining that knowledge of himself which is understanding, wisdom, power. In this direction, as in no other, is the law absolute, that he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. For only by patience, practice, and ceaseless importunities can a man enter the door of the temple of knowledge. Effect of thought on circumstances. Man's mind may be linked to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. But whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind. Just as a gardener cultivates his plot, keeping it free from weeds and growing the flowers and fruits which he requires, so may a man intend the garden of his mind, weeding out all the wrong, useless, and impure thought, and cultivating toward perfection of flowers and fruits of right, useful, and pure thought. By pursuing this process, a man sooner or later discovers that he is the master gardener of his soul, the director of his life. He also reveals within himself the laws of thought and understands with ever-increasing accuracy how the thought forces and mind element operate in the shaping of his character, circumstance, and destiny. Thought and character are one. As a character can only manifest and discover itself through environment and circumstance, the outer condition of a person's life will always be found to be harmlessly related to his inner state. This does not mean that a man's circumstance at any given time are an indication of his entire character, but that those circumstances are so intimately connected with some vital thought element within himself that for the time being they are indispensable to his development. Every man is where he is by the law of his being. The thought which he has built into his character had brought him here, and in the arrangement of his life there is no element of chance, but all is the result of the law which cannot err. This is just as true of those who feed out of harmony with their surrounding as of those who are contented with them. As a progressive and evolving being, man is where he is, that he may learn, he learns the spiritual lesson which any circumstance contained for him, it passes away and gives place to other circumstance. Man is befitted by circumstance, as long as he behave himself to be the creator of outside condition. But when he realizes that he is a creative power, that he may command the hidden soil and seeds of his being out of which circumstance grow, he then becomes the rightful master of himself. That circumstances grow out of thought, every man knows who has for any length of time practiced self-control and self-purification. For he will have noticed that the alteration of his circumstance has been in exact ratio with his altered mental condition. So true is this, that when a man earnestly applies himself to remedy the defect of his character and makes swift and marked progress, he passes rapidly thought successions of vicissitudes. The soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which is loved, and also that which it fears. It reaches the height of its cherished aspiration. It falls to the level of its unchested desires, and circumstances are the means by which the soul receives its own. Every thought seed sown or allowed to fall into the mind are taken root there, produces its own, blossoming sooner or later into act and bearing its own fruitage of opportunity and circumstance. Good thought bear good fruits, bad thought bad fruits. The outer world of circumstance shapes itself to the inner world of thought, and both pleasant and unpleasant external conditions are factors which make for the ultimate good of the individual. As a reaper of his own harvest, man learns both by suffering and bliss, following the inmost desires, aspiration, thoughts, by which he allows himself to be dominated. A man at last arrives at their fruition and fulfillment in the outer condition of his life. The laws of growth and adjustment everywhere occur. A man does not come to the almshouse or the jail by the tyranny of fate or circumstance, but by the pathway of groveling thought and base desires. Nor does a pure-minded man fall suddenly into crime by stress or any mere external force. The criminal thought had long been secretly fostered in the heart, and the hour of opportunity revealed its gathered power. Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals him to himself. No such condition can exist as descending into vice and its attendant suffering apart from vicious inclination, or ascending into virtue and its pure happiness without the continued cultivation of virtuous aspiration. And man, therefore, is a lord and master of thought, is the maker of himself, the shaper and author of environment. Even in birth, the soul comes to its own, and through every step of its earthly pilgrimage, it attracts those combinations of conditions which reveal itself, which are the reflection of its own purity and impurity, its strength and weakness. Men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. Their whims, fancies, and ambitions are thwarted at every step, but their inmost thought and desire are filled with their own food, be it full or clean. The divinity that shapes our end is in ourselves. It is our very self. Only himself manacles man. Thoughts and actions are the goalers of fate. They imprison being base. They are also the angels of freedom. They liberate being noble. Not what he wishes and prays, what does a man get, not what he justly earns. His wishes and prayers are only gratified and answered when they harmonize with his thoughts and action. In the light of his truth, what then is the meaning of fighting against circumstance? It means that a man is continually revolting against an effect without, while all the time he is nourishing and preserving its cause in his heart. That cause may take the form of a conscious vice or an unconscious weakness, but whether it is, it stubbornly retards the effort of its possessor and thus call aloud for remedy. Men are anxious to improve their circumstance, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. The man who does not shrink from self-crucifixion can never fail to accomplish the object which his heart is set. This is as true of earthly as of heavenly things. Even the man whose sole object is to accumulate wealth must be prepared to make great personal sacrifice before he can accomplish his object, and much more so he who would realize a strong and well-poised life. Here is a man who is wretchedly poor. He is extremely anxious that his surrounding and home comfort should be improved. Yet all the time he shrinks his work and considers he is justified in trying to deceive his employer on the ground of the insufficiency of his wages. Such a man does not understand the simplest rudiment of this principle, which are the basis of true prosperity, and is not only totally unfitted to rise out of his wretchedness, but is actually attracting to himself a still deeper wretchedness by dwelling in and acting out indolent, deceptive, and unmanly thought. He is a rich man who is a victim of a painful and persistent disease as a result of gluttony. He is willing to give large sums of money to get rid of it, but he will not sacrifice his gluttonous desire. He wants to gratify his taste of rich and unnatural wines and have his health as well. Such a man is totally unfit to have health because he has not yet learned the first principles of a healthy life. He is an employer of labor who adopts crooked measure to avoid paying the regulation wage, and in the hope of making larger profit, reduces the wages of his work people. Such a man is altogether unfitted for prosperity, and when he finds himself bankrupt, both as regard reputation and riches, he blames circumstance, not knowing that he is the sole author of his condition. I have introduced these three cases merely as illustrative of the truth that a man is the causer of his circumstance, and that, whilst aiming at a good end, he is continually frustrating its accomplishment by encouraging thought and desire which cannot possibly harmonize with that end. Such cases could be multiplied and varied almost indefinitely. But this is not necessary, as a reader can, if he so resolve, trace the action of the laws by thought of his own mind and life. And until this is done, mere external facts cannot serve as a ground of reasoning. Circumstances, however, are so complicated, thought is so deeply rooted, and the condition of happiness varies vastly with the individual, that a man's entire soul condition cannot be judged by another from the external aspect of his life alone. A man may be honest in certain direction, yet suffer privations. A man may be dishonest in certain direction, yet acquire wealth. But the conclusion usually formed that one man fails because of his particular honesty and the other prosper because of his particular dishonesty. It is a result of the superficial judgment which assumes that the dishonest man is almost totally corrupt and the honest man almost entirely virtuous. In the light of a deeper knowledge and widened experience, such judgment is found to be erroneous. The dishonest man may have some admirable virtue which the other does not possess, and the honest man obnoxious vices which are absent in the other. The honest man reaps the good result of his honest thought and act. He also brings upon himself the sufferings which his vice produce. The dishonest man likewise garner his own suffering and happiness. It is pleasing to human vanity to believe that one suffers because of one's virtue, but not until a man has extirpated every sickly, bitter and impure thought from his mind, and washed every sinful stain from his soul, can he be in a position to know and declare that his suffering and the result of his good and not of his bad qualities. On the other way to yet long before he has reached that supreme perfection, he will have found working in his mind and life the great law which is absolutely just and which cannot therefore give good for evil, evil for good. Possessed of such knowledge, he will then know, looking back upon his past ignorance and blindness, that his life is and always was justly ordered, and that all his past experiences, good and bad, were the equitable outworking of his evolving yet unresolved self. Good thoughts and action can never produce bad result. Bad thoughts and action can never produce good result. This is but saying that nothing can come from corn but corn, nothing from nettles but nettles. Men understand this law in the natural world and work with it, but few understand it in the mental and moral world, and they therefore do not cooperate with it. Suffering is always the effect of wrong thought in some direction. It is an indication that the individual is out of harmony with himself, with the law of his being. The sole and supreme use of suffering is to purify, to burn out all that is useless and impure. Suffering ceases for him who is pure. There could be no object in burning gold after the dross has been removed, and a perfectly pure and enlightened being could not suffer. The circumstances which a man encounters with suffering are the result of his own mental inharmony. The circumstances man encounters with blessedness are the result of his own mental harmony. Blessedness, not material possession, is a measure of the right thought. Correctness, not lack of material possession, is a measure of the wrong thought. A man may be cursed and rich. He may be blessed and poor. Blessedness and rich are only jointly together when the riches are rightly and widely used, and a poor man only descends into wretchedness when he regards his lot as a burden unjustly imposed. Indigence and indulgence are the two extremes of wretchedness. They are both equally unnatural and result of mental disorder. A man is not rightly conditioned until he is happy, healthy, and prosperous being, and happiness, health, and prosperity are the result of a harmonious adjustment of the inner with the outer, of the man with his surrounding. A man only began to be a man when he ceases to whine and revile, and commences to search for the hidden justice which regulates his life. And as he adapts his mind to that regulating factor, he ceases to accuse others as the cause of his condition and builds himself upon a strong and noble thought, ceases to kick against circumstance, but begins to use them as aid to his more rapid progress, and as a mean of discovering the hidden power and possibilities within himself. Law, not confusion, is a dominating principle in the universe. Justice, not justice, is the soul and substance of life, and rightness, not corruption, is a molding and moving force in the spiritual garment of the world. This being so, man has but to right himself to find that the universe is right, and during the process of putting himself right, he will find that as he alters his thought toward things, and other people, things and other people will alter towards him. The proof of this truth is in every person, and is therefore admits of easy investigation by systematic introspection and self-analysis. Let a man radically alter his thought, and he will be astonished at the rapid transformation it will effect in the material condition of his life. Man imagines that thought can be kept secret, but it cannot. It rapidly crystallizes into habit, and habit solidified into circumstance. Bastille thought crystallizing into habit of drunkenness and sensuality, which solidified into circumstances of destitution and disease. Impure thought of every kind crystallizes into enervating and confusing habits, which solidified into distracting and adverse circumstance. Thoughts of fear, doubt, and indecision crystallizes into weak, unmanly, and irresolute habit, which solidified into circumstance of failure, intelligence, and slavish dependence. Lazy thought crystallizes into habits of uncleanness and dishonesty, which solidified into circumstances of illness and beggary. Hateful and condemnatory thoughts crystallizes into habits of accusation and violence, which solidified into circumstances of injury and persecution. Selfish thoughts of all kinds crystallizes into habit of self-seeking, which solidified into circumstance more or less distressing. On the other hand, beautiful thoughts of all kinds crystallizes into habits of grace and kindliness, which solidified into genial and sunny circumstance. Pure thought crystallizes into habits of temperance and self-control, which solidified into circumstance of repose and peace. Thoughts of courage, self-reliance, and decision crystallizes into manly habit, which solidified into circumstance of success, plenty, and freedom. Energetic thought crystallizes into habit of cleanliness and industry, which solidified into circumstance of pleasantness. Gentle and forgiving thought crystallizes into habit of gentleness, which solidified into protective and persuasive circumstance. Loving and unselfish thought crystallizes into habit of self-forgetfulness for others, which solidified into circumstance of sure and abiding prosperity and true richness. A particular train of thought persisted it, be it good or bad, cannot fail to produce its results on the character and circumstance. A man cannot directly choose his circumstances, but he can choose his thoughts, and so indirectly yet surely shape his circumstance. Nature helps every man to be gratifications of the thought, which he most encourage, and opportunities are presented which will most speedily bring to the surface both the good and evil thought. Let a man cease from his sinful thoughts, and all the world will soften towards him, and be ready to help him. Let him put away his weakly and sickly thoughts, and lo, opportunities will spring up on every hand to aid his strong resolves. Let him encourage good thoughts, and no hard fate shall bind him down to wretchedness and shame. The world is your kaleidoscope, and a varying combination of colors, which at every succeeding moment it presents to you are the exquisitely adjusted pictures of your ever-moving thoughts. So you will be what you will to be. Let failure find its false content in that poor word environment, but spirit scorns it and is free. It masters time, it conquers peace, it coves the boastful trickster, chance, and bids the tyrant circumstance uncrown, and fill a servant's place. The human will, that force unseen, the offspring of a deathless soul, can heave a way to any goal, through walls of granite intervene. Be not impatient in delays, but wait as one who understands. When spirit rises and commands, the gods are ready to obey. Effect of thought on health and the body. The body is a servant of the mind. It obeys the operation of the mind, whether they be deliberately chosen or automatically expressed. At the bidding of unlawful thoughts, the body sinks rapidly into disease and decay. At the command of glad and beautiful thoughts, it becomes clothed with youthfulness and beauty. Disease and health, like circumstances, are rooted in thought. Sickly thought will express themselves through a sickly body. Thoughts of fear have been known to kill a man as speedily as a bullet, and they are continually killing thousands of people just as surely, though less rapidly. The people who live in fear of disease are the people who get it. Anxiety quickly demoralizes the whole body and lays it open to the entrance of disease, while impure thoughts, even if not physically indulged, will soon shatter the nervous system. Strong, pure, and happy thoughts build up the body in vigor and grace. The body is a delicate and plastic instrument which responds readily to the thought by which it is impressed, and a habit of thoughts will produce their own effect, good or bad, upon it. Men will continue to have impure and poisoned blood as long as they propagate unclean thoughts. Out of a clean heart comes a clean life and a clean body. Out of a defiled mind proceeds a defiled life and a corrupt body. Thought is the fount of action, life, and manifestation. Make the fountain pure, and all will be pure. Change of diet will not help a man who will not change his thoughts. When a man makes his thought pure, he no longer desires impure food. Clean thoughts make clean habits. The so-called saint who does not wash his body is not a saint. He who has strengthened and purified his thought does not need to consider the malevolent microbe. If you would protect your body, guard your mind. If you would renew your body, beautify your mind. Thoughts of malice, envy, disappointment, despondency rob the body of its health and grace. A sour face does not come by chance, it is made by sour thought. Wrinkles that mad are down by folly, passion, and pride. I know a woman of 96 who has the bright, innocent face of a girl. I know a man well under middle age whose face is drawn into inharmonious contours. The one is the result of a sweet and sunny disposition. The other is the outcome of passion and discontent. As you cannot have a sweet and wholesome abode unless you admit the air and sunshine freely into your room, so a strongly body and bright, happy, or serene continuance can only result from the free admittance into the mind of thoughts of joy and goodwill and serenity. On the faces of the aged, there are wrinkles made by sympathy, others by strong and pure thoughts, and others are cowed by passion. Who cannot distinguish them with those who have lived rightly? Age is calm, peaceful, and softly mellowed, like the setting sun. I have recently seen a philosopher on his deathbed. He was not old except years. He died as sweetly and peacefully as he had lived. There is no physician like cheerful thought for dissipating the ills of the body. There is no comforter to compare with goodwill for dispersing the shadows of grief and sorrow. To live continually in thoughts of ill will, cynicism, suspicion, and envy is to be confined in a self-made prison hole. But to think well of all, to be cheerful with all, to patiently learn to find the good in all. Such unselfish thoughts are the very portals of heaven, and to dwell day by day in thoughts of peace toward every creature will bring abounding peace in their possessors. Thought and purpose. Until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. With the majority, the bark of thought is allowed to drift upon the ocean of life. Aimlessness is a vice, and such thing must not continue for him who would steer clear of catastrophe and destruction. They who have no central purpose in their life fall an easy prey to petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pitying, all of which are indication of weakness, which lead just as surely as deliberately planned schemes to failure, unhappiness, and loss. For weakness cannot persist in a power-evolving universe. A man should conceive of a legitimate purpose in his heart and set out to accomplish it. He should make his purpose the centralizing point of his thoughts. It may take the form of a spiritual ideal, or it may be a worldly object, according to his nature at the time being, but whichever it is, he should steadily focus his thought forces upon the object which he has set before him. He should make this purpose his supreme duty and should devote himself to its attainment, not allowing his thoughts to wander away into ephemeral fancies, longing and imagining. This is a royal road to self-control and true concentration of thought. Even if he fail again and again to accomplish his purpose, the strength of character gained will be the measure of his true success, and this will form a new starting point for future power and triumph. Those who are not prepared for the apprehension of a great purpose should fix the thought upon the faultless performance of their duty. No matter how insignificant their task may appear, only in this way can the thought be gathered and focused, and resolution and energy be developed, which being done, there is nothing which may not be accomplished. The weaker soul, knowing its own weakness and believing this that the strength can only be developed by effort and practice, will thus believing at once begin to exert itself. And adding effort to effort, patience to patience, and strength to strength will never cease to develop and will at last grow divinely strong. As a physically weak man can make himself strong by careful and patient training, so the man of weak thought can make them strong by exercising himself in right thinking. To put away aimlessness and weakness and to begin to think with purpose is to enter the rank of those strong ones who only recognize failure as one of the pathways to attainment, who makes all conditions serve them, and who will think strongly, attempt fearlessly, and accomplish masterfully. Having conceived of his purpose, a man should mentally mark out a straight pathway to its achievement, looking neither to the right nor the left. Doubt and fear should be rigorously excluded. They are a disintegrating element which break up the straight line of effort, rendered it crooked, inefficient, useless. Thoughts of doubt and fear never accomplish anything and never can. They always lead to failure. Purpose, energy, power to do, and all strong thought cease when doubt and fear creep in. The will to do spring from the knowledge that we can do. Doubt and fear are the great enemies of knowledge, and he who encourages them, who does not slay them, thwarts himself at every step. He who has conquered doubt and fear has conquered failure. His every thought is allied with power, and all difficulties are bravely met and wisely overcome. His purposes are seasonably planted, and they bloom and bring forth fruit, which does not fall prematurely to the ground. Thoughts aligned fearlessly to purpose become creative force. He who knows this is ready to become something higher and stronger than a mere bundle of wavering thoughts and fluctuating sensation. He who does this has become the conscious and intelligent builder of mental powers, the thought factor in achievement. All that a man achieves and all that he fails to achieve is a direct result of his own thoughts. In a justly ordered universe where loss of equipoise would mean total destruction, individual responsibility must be absolute. A man's weakness and strength, purified and impurified, are his own and not another man's. They are brought about by himself and not by another, and they can only be altered by himself, never by another. His condition is also his own and not another's man. His suffering and his happiness are evolved from within. As he thinks, so he is. As he continues to think, so he remains. A strong man cannot help a weaker unless the weaker is willing to be helped. And even then a weak man must become strong of himself. He must, by his own effort, develop the strength which he admires in another. None but himself can alter his condition. It has been usual for men to think and to say, many men are slaves, because one is an oppressor, let us hate the oppressor. Now, however, there is among an increasing few a tendency to reverse this judgment, and to say, one man oppressor because many are slaves. Let us despise the slaves. The truth is that oppressor and slaves are cooperators in ignorance, and while seeming to afflict each other, are really afflicting themselves. A perfect knowledge perceives the action of law in the weakness of the oppressed and the misapplied power of the oppressor. A perfect love, seeing the suffering which both states entail, condemns neither. A perfect compassion embraces both oppressor and oppressed. He who has conquered weakness and has put away all selfish thought belongs neither to oppressor nor oppressed. He is free. A man can only rise, conquer and achieve by lifting up his thought. He can only remain abject and miserable by refusing to lift up his thoughts. Before a man can achieve anything, even in worldly thing, he must lift his thought about slavish animal indulgence. He may not, in order to succeed, give up all animality and selfishness by any means, but a portion of it must, at least, be sacrificed. A man whose first thought is bestial indulgence could neither think clearly nor plan methodically. He could not find and develop his latent resource and would fail in any undertaking. Not having commenced to manfully control his thought, he is not in a position to control affairs and to adopt serious responsibility. He is not fit to act independently and stand alone, but he is limited only by the thought which he chooses. There can be no progress, no achievement without sacrifice, and a man's worldly success will be in the measure that he sacrifices his confused animal thought and fixes his mind on the development of his plan and the strengthening of his resolution and self-reliance. And the higher he lifts his thought, the more manly, upright, and righteous he becomes. The greater will be his success, the more blessed and enduring will be his achievements. The universe does not favor the greedy, the dishonest, the vicious. Although on the mere surface it may sometimes appear to do so, it helps the honest, the magnanimous, the virtuous. All the great teachers of the ages have declared this in various forms, and to prove and know it, a man has put to persist in making himself more and more vigorous by lifting up his thought. Intellectual achievement are the result of thought, consecrated to the search for knowledge, or for the beautiful and true in life and nature. Such achievements may be sometimes connected with vanity and ambition, but they are not the outcome of those characteristics. They are the natural outgrowth of long and arduous effort and of pure and unselfish thoughts. Spiritual achievements are the consummation of holy aspiration. He who lives constantly in the conception of noble and lofty thoughts, who dwells upon all that is pure and unselfish, will, as surely as the sun it reaches its zenith and the moon is full, become wise and noble in character and rise into a position of influence and blessedness. Achievement of whatever kind is a crown of effort, the diadem of thought. By the aid of self-control, resolution, purity, righteousness, and well-directed thought, a man ascends. By the lead of enmity, indolence, impurity, corruption and confusion of thought, a man descends. A man may rise to high success in the world and even to lofty altitudes in the spiritual realm, and again descend into weakness and wretchedness by allowing arrogant, selfish, corrupt thought to take possession of him. Victories attained by right thought can only be maintained by watchfulness. Many give away when success is assured and rapidly fall back into failure. All achievement, whether in the business, intellectual, or spiritual world, are definitely directed thought, are governed by the same law and are of the same method. The only difference lies in the object of attainment. He who would accomplish little must sacrifice little. He who would achieve much must sacrifice much. He who would attain highly must sacrifice greatly. Visions and ideals. The dreamers are the saviors of the world. As the visible world is sustained by the invisible, so men, through all their trials and scenes and sordid vocations, are nourished by the beautiful vision of their solitary dreamers. Humanity cannot forget its dreamers. It cannot let their ideas fade and die. It lives in them. It knows them as the realities which it shall one day see and know. Composer, sculptor, painter, poet, prophet, sage, these are the makers of the afterworld, the architect of heaven. The world is beautiful because they have lived. Without them, laboring humanity would perish. He who cherishes a beautiful vision, a lofty ideas in his heart, will one day realize it. Columbus cherished a vision of another world and he discovered it. Copernicus fostered the vision of multiplicity of the world and a wider universe and he revealed it. Buddha beheld the vision of a spiritual world of stainless beauty and perfect peace and he entered into it. Cherish your vision, cherish your ideas, cherish the music that stirs in your heart, the beauty that forms in your mind, the loveliness that wraps your purest thought. For out of them will grow all delightful condition, all heavenly environment. Of this, if you but remain true to them, your world at last will build. To desire is to obtain, to aspire is to achieve. Shall man's basic desire receive the fullest measure of gratification, and his purest aspirations starve for lack of sustenance? Such is not the law. Such a condition of thing can never obtain. Ask and receive. Dream lofty dreams. As you dream, so shall you become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your ideal is the prophecy of what you shall at last unearth. The greatest achievement was at first and for a time a dream. The oak sleeps in the acorn, the bird waits in the egg, and in the highest vision of the soul a waking angel stirs. Dreams are the seedlings of realities. Your circumstances may be uncongenial, but they shall not long remain. So if you but perceive an ideal and strive to reach it, you cannot travel within and stand still without. Here is a youth, hard pressed by poverty and labor, confined long hours in an unhealthy workshop, unschooled and lacking all the art of refinement. But he dreams of better things. He thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace and beauty. He conceives of mentally built up an ideal condition of life. The vision of a wider liberty and a larger scope takes possession of him. Unrest urges him to action and he utilizes all his spare time and means, small though they are, to the development of his latent power and resources. Very soon, so altered has his mind become that a workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment is cast aside. And with the growth of opportunities which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. Years later, we see this youth as a full-grown man. We find him a master of certain forces of the mind which he wields the worldwide influence and almost unequaled power. In his hand he holds the cord of the gigantic responsibility. He speaks and lives are changed. Man and woman hang upon his words and remold their character and sunlight. He becomes the fixest and luminous center round which innumerable destinies revolve. He has realized the vision of his youth. He has become one with his ideal. And you too, youthful reader, will realize the vision of your heart, be it base or beautiful or a mixture of both. For you will gravitate toward that which you secretly most love. Into your hands will be placed the exact result of your own thoughts. You will receive that which you want, no more, no less. Whatever your present environment may be, you will fall, remain, or rise with your thoughts, your vision, your ideal. You will become as small as your controlling desire, as great as your dominant aspiration. In the beautiful word of Stanton Crichton Davis, you may be keeping accounts, and presently you shall walk out of the door that for so long has seemed to you the barrier of your ideals, and shall find yourself before an audience. The pen still behind your ear, the ink stains on your fingers, and then there shall pour out the torrent of your aspiration. You may be driving ship, and you shall wander to the city, bucolic and open mouthed, shall wander upon the intrepid guidance of the Spirit into the studio of the Master, and after a time he shall say, I have nothing more to teach you, and now you have become the Master, who did so recently dream of great things while driving a ship. You shall lay down the saw and the plane to take upon yourself the regeneration of the world. The thoughtless, the arrogant, and the indolent seeing only the apparent effect of things and not the things themselves. Talk of luck, of fortune and chance. Seeing a man grow rich, they say, how lucky he is. Observing another become intelligent, they exclaim, how highly favored he is. And nothing the saintly character and wild influence of another, they remark, how chance aids him at every turn. They do not see the trials and failures and struggles which this man have voluntarily encountered in order to gain their experience, have no knowledge of the sacrifice they have made, of the undoubted efforts they have put forth, of the faith they have exercised, that they might overcome the apparently insurmountable and realize the vision of their heart. They do not know the darkness and the heartaches. They only see the light and joy and call it luck. They do not see the long and arduous journey, but only behold the pleasant goal and call it good fortune. Do not understand the process, but only perceive the result and call it chance. In all human affairs there are efforts and there are results, and the strength of the effort is the measure of the result. Chances is not. Gifts, power, material, intellectual, and spiritual possessions are the fruits of effort. Their thoughts completed, object accomplished, visions realized. The vision that you glorify in your mind, the ideal that you enthrone in your heart, this will build your life, this you will become. Serenity. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is the result of long and patient effort in self-control. Its presence is an indication of ripened experience and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operation of thought. A man becomes calm in the measure that he understands himself as a thought-evolved being. For such knowledge necessitates the understanding of others as a result of thought. As he develops a right understanding and sees more and more clearly the internal relations of things, by the action of cause and effect, he ceases to fuse and fume, and worry and grieve, and remain poised, steadfast, serene. The calm man, having learned how to govern himself, knows how to adapt himself to others, and they in turn reverence his spiritual strength and feel that they can learn of him and rely upon him. The more muscular man becomes, the greater is his success, his influence, his power of good. Even the ordinary trader will find his business prosperity increase as he develops a greater self-control and equanimity. For people will always prefer to deal with a man whose demeanor is strongly equable. The strong, calm man is always loved and revered. He is like a shade-giving tree in a thirsty land or a sheltering rock in a storm. Who does not love a tranquil heart, a sweet-tempered, balanced life? It does not matter whether it rains or shines or what changes come to the possessing this blessing, and they are always sweet, serene, and calm. That exquisite poise of character, which we call serenity, is the last lesson of culture, the fruitage of the soul. It is precious as wisdom, more to be desirable than gold. They even find gold, how insignificant mere money-seeking looks in comparison with a serene life, a life that dwells in the ocean of truth, beneath the waves, beyond the reach of tempest, is the eternal calm. How many people we know who soar their lives, who ruin all that it is sweet and beautiful by explosive tempers, who destroy their poise of character, do not run their lives and mar their happiness by lack of self-control. How few people we met in life who are well balanced, who have that exquisite poise which is characteristics of the unfinished character. Yes, humanity surges with uncontrolled passion, is tumultuous with ungoverned grief, is blown about by anxiety and doubt. Only the wise man, only he whose thoughts are controlled and purified, makes the winds and the storms of the soul obey him. Tempest-tossed soul, wherever ye may be, under whosever condition ye may be, know this: in the ocean of life, the ease of blissness are smiling, and the sunny shore of your ideal awaits your coming. Keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does but sleep. Wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto your heart, peace, be still. As a Man Thinketh summary. As a Man Thinketh is an essay and self-help classic which argues that the key of mastering your life is harnessing the power of your thoughts and help you cultivate the philosophy and attitude of a positive, successful person. Here are 3 great lessons about how your thoughts shape your life. First, your actions are outgrowth of your thought. Second, you shape the world just as much as it shapes you. Third, thought can keep you young or make you age faster. Want to become the master of your own mind? Time to think. Lesson 1. What you do is a result of what you think. The very first argument Alan lays out is that man is a sum of his thought. Just like tiny seed turns into big plant, a single thought often turns into major decision, which makes your thought the roots of your action. Over time, this action shapes into patterns. This will eventually make up our character. This is why most pessimistic people tend to give up more easily on the things they care about, because your attitude and your action are directly linked to one another. If you don't start out with confidence and expect very little of yourself, that's exactly what you will deliver. But if your thoughts shape your action, then by changing your thoughts, you can change your action and subsequently your character too. The time to start weeding out bad thoughts is right now. Today is the day to stop accepting negative thought as normal and fight back. Take control of your mind and you will take control of your life. Lesson 2. You shape the world just as much as it shapes you. The reason your thoughts and actions are so deeply connected is because they live in a constant cause and effect relationship with the outside world. What does that mean? You might see your life as mostly determined by external factors. The weather, the economy, politics, your co-workers, your boss. Whether you have good luck or bad luck, your life depends on so many things you can't influence. But it's not as black and white as that. Playing the victim is easy. You can just push off responsibility and blame the world for everything. In reality, your thoughts, your action, your character, they all take at least as much influence on the world as the world does on you. The thoughts and attitude you have what lead into the situation of your life, some of which you then end up assigning to good or bad luck, when it's really yourself that got you here. Therefore, you can't describe a person's character just by looking at the environment she lives in, or predict the circumstance she'll end up in. Because of the way she is, there are many admirable and probably genuinely good people in jail, while some greedy bastard living happily off other people's misery. Lesson 3. Be careful what you think. It might make you age faster. A crucial aspect almost no one look at when examining thought is your health. When you talk about the power of positive thinking, we usually speak of affirmations, goals, priorities, etc., but not about health. Yes, what you think massively impact your heart rate, sleep, chronic pains like migraines and your skin. Yes, you can think yourself to wrinkly skin. Do you know that saying be careful what you wish for, this book extend it to be careful what you think about. On the other hand, thinking very positively and dwelling on energizing thought can keep you young. So take every chance you get to weed out negative thoughts. Pretend your mind is a garden and everything that doesn't help it grows has to go. You will thank yourself for years to come. My personal takeaway: this is a very short book with a very short summary. At first, I thought it's best to just get the book and read it in one go. But come to think of it, I'll use this summary as a guidance and look into it to get a better grip on things, as the language in the book can be quite complicated simply because it's so old. So this ends the audiobook of this book. I hope you like the video. Bye bye, take care and keep reading.